Welcome to Chaos Divided, your weekly dose of wholesome hammer, where we explore the hobby, the game, and the lore of Warhammer 40k. We're your hosts, Nurgle Snurgle and Blushing Noise Marine. If you're enjoying the podcast, don't forget to give us a follow. We've launched a Patreon, so if you are a fan of what we do and want to support us, you can find the link in the episode description. This week, we're giving our guide to the grim, dark future.
Ooh.
It's spooky! It's perfect for this month. And the quote is the one and only quote from, I guess, Warhammer 40k.
I think it's like the front of every rule book. It's like when you think of Warhammer 40k, it is the quote. And you know what? In 24 episodes, we've never used it. So
oh, wow.
Yeah.
Has anyone ever uttered this quote in the book?
I think it's more of like the description for the setting. It's like part of the the Emperor of Mankind has sat upon the golden throne for 10,000 years, and like it's like the description of 40k.
And if you're wondering what that is, it is: in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war.
It's true.
And Nurgle and some corn.
Nurgle's also all about. I know you're like Nurgle's all about love.
Oh, I guess like
Nurgle
more like
does a lot of
food
war.
Fights. He's got food fights.
Food. That is the grossest way to describe how Nurgle fights.
Oh, you think I saw? You think I said poo fights?
No, food fights. But poo fights is even grosser. Yeah, both apply. Yes. Just like, some like great unclean one pulling some half-digested mushroom out of their belly and throwing it at people. It's gross.
They could also put it in their mouth, make it into food, and then throw it. So it is a food fight.
Yeah, that's, whatever end it needs to come out of, I'm sure it's still gross and violent. Nurgle is love, but Nurgle is also at war. Now, I think we can't not talk about the most exciting thing to happen on the day that we're recording this. Yeah. On this day that we record this podcast.
On today, I remember.
I think, we talked about this in episode 17, a trip to the mini wargaming bunker, but the fruits of your labor have been released to the wild. How do you feel?
Oh, I've been feeling the love today. Like, it was just overflowing. And to break it down, there is a mini wargaming video. I wouldn't even say video. I'd say like it's a film. It's so well. Film. Phlegm. It's. Yeah, that was released today. So I woke up to a message from Dave that he sent last night, but I missed it. That he messaged me and he goes, "I want to watch the video with you." And I was like, "Oh, when?" And within 2 minutes, I had the video call incoming from Dave. I was like, "Oh, now." And got all set up, and I watched it with him. And I think I was watching the video, and he was watching me watch the video and watching my reaction, and it was absolutely glorious.
Well, and it's a lovely video, and I encourage you all to watch it on Mini Wargaming's YouTube page, because it is a fitting tribute to a very nice Nurgle Snurgle.
Thank you. We'll put a link in the description of this video as well, or this podcast. Sorry. Like I had no say in any of the editing or anything. I never saw any teasers or anything like that, and so it was today is my raw reaction to it all, and it was honestly, when it ended, I felt this sense of like, I want to see more of this of other people. And the way I described it today was like, I know it's me, but I've never seen myself in this angle, and I was appreciating myself as a person. And that was just, that's a gift in itself when you can really even appreciate yourself. And there was a part where I said to Dave, because he kept mentioning it when I was there, he kept saying, "Oh, your voice is so soothing." And I was like, whatever. Everybody hates the sound of their own voice, including
Girl,
myself.
I said the same. Why do you think we started this podcast?
and I'm watching and I'm listening and I'm like, oh, I'm soothing myself. Wow. Is this whoa? And I said that to Dave and he's like, yes, do you know? That's my best Dave impression.
I don't think there's enough energy there. I don't know if you could get to Dave's level.
No, never. No.
Yeah, but
him and I are like a balance. Like he's just high energy, and I'm just like, I don't want to say low vibing. That's not a good way to put it, but like
you're even keel though. It's like you're there's a calm. It's like the water is still, whereas like I feel like Dave is like storm surge, pre-hurricane ocean, just like not necessarily like energetic, like not necessarily in a negative way, just like it seems like there's a lot of elemental forces there, whereas I feel like you're like the placid lake of just like it's not disturbed,
but even like
even,
and then you can throw a pebble, but then it like creates this ripple and it's just beautiful. Like it just goes on and on and on. Like have you ever heard like of the butterfly effect?
I was waiting for you to bring up butterflies because I have a feeling you have a connection to butterflies.
I do, actually. When I was here's a little snargly story time, and why I love butterflies so much is in grade 1 I was at this elementary school and we did a project within the school, and we all collectively in each class collected caterpillars, and then we kept them in little aquariums, and then we studied them, and then in the middle of the school we put them in a giant glass aquarium and watched them cocoon themselves, and then when they were ready we all released them as butterflies. And I just remember this moment of seeing hundreds of butterflies released, and how can you not like a butterfly? I don't know anyone out there that hates butterflies, and if you do, you can DM me and we can chat about it. But
you can at Nurgle Snurgle.
Yeah, tell me why you hate butterflies. You can hate moths. I understand hating moths, but you can't hate a butterfly.
Butterflies just like exist. I feel like humans and butterflies don't really cross paths. It's like they do their thing, we do our thing, we don't necessarily interact with each other. You're just like, oh, that's a pretty butterfly.
But I have, though, and this is going to be really cheesy, but there was about a month or two ago, I was at my garden, and I swear to God, there was this butterfly, and he almost was dancing around with me. Like I have like 20-minute video of just this butterfly just hanging around me, and just I would walk and they would follow me, so that was a connection. Whereas moths, they'll F around you and they'll like be in your face, or they'll like ugh. I'm not a big fan.
Yeah, ugh. I mean, I think they look similar, but they're not actually similar species.
Nope. It's like a wasp and a bumblebee.
Yeah, it's like just because you look similar doesn't mean you are similar.
Yeah.
But no, it's an absolutely lovely video, and I was so happy to see it. I messaged you right away, and it's very nice. I know we talked about it before in that previous episode of like what you guys did, but it was very nice to like see it presented in such a like loving way. And I showed my wife it, and she thought it was lovely too. So.
Oh, yeah. I've been sending it to families and friends, but someone also commented on the video that it's a great introduction for newcomers, and I think that I don't know if that was like the sole goal of the video, but I think that is such a great takeaway from it, that it can be shareable with you don't even have to understand what Warhammer is, but when you can watch something full of passion and you feel it, you'll want to know more about it. So I'm hoping that that's the effect of that video, and I cross my fingers that it goes far and wide. But I know that it's something that I can at least always hold dear, and that was one thing I was looking forward to. Like, when I'm 60 years old, I'm going to show my children, this is what your mother used to do. And just show like grotesque models and butterflies in the same video.
I don't think you're gonna have like a house full of like Nurgle models just
That's
staring
true.
at everyone who walks in. I feel like they'll know. Everyone will they'll just be like like, you know, like instead of the creepy doll house, you'll have the creepy Nurgle house of just like, why are there 900 plague bearers staring at me right now?
But there wouldn't be. There would be 777.
Again, walk right past it. Just
I wish I could capture that stare you just gave me. But you're right. Like, you know, that whole meme thing, like, if I win the lottery, there'll be evidence of it. And I guess I'll have the evidence of I'm a miniature painter.
Just be like, why is there a life-size scale replica of a Great Unclean One in this random front yard of a house?
Life-size scale?
Yeah.
You know how big a Great Unclean One is?
Yeah. That'll be the evidence. That'll be the like. It'll be on like CBC News. They'll be like, "What is this thing?" And you'll just be like, "Why is it Strength 8 Games Workshop?"
Yeah. Still the weakest sword in the game. But you'd be able to see that from space.
You said you win the lottery. What was the last jackpot was like $70 million. So like, you know, that doesn't buy you a Great Unclean One.
To achieve. Okay, I'll get the life size Great Unclean One if you get the life size Schlaxi.
Sure.
Okay, deal.
I can agree to that.
Can we be neighbors?
They're just staring at each other, just across the street, just like glaring.
Yeah.
That'd be funny. But yeah, you know what? Actually, talking about that being an introduction for beginners, I fully agree. And I think it's somewhat inspired this episode because we're this isn't really like a tutorial or like a, you know, beginner's guide. It's more of a like discussion of just like what getting started in Warhammer looks like. I think it's we're calling it the Grimdark Guide, but really like, because you know what, there's 1,000 like how to start. I think Auspex Tactics makes about 4 a day of how to start different factions. So like those videos are out there. Those like, but really like the why and the how is what I wanted to talk about today. And I think it does fit in very nicely with that mini wargaming video, because there's really, when you think of Warhammer, you often think of like, you know, the lore, which is very dark, or you think of like the competitive scene, which can be sweaty at times, to use some Zoomer talk. But at its core, like the reason we play Warhammer is because we love it, and it's exciting, and it's fun, and it connects people, and it brings them together, and it brings together people that you wouldn't expect to bring together. And that's what
there's a part in that video where I say Warhammer's just the glue to connect us all.
Now we're changing the quote. Warhammer's just the glue. That's the
we can use that next time.
Nurgle Snurgle. Quoted, locked in. But it's true. Like we talked about, like community is such a big part of this. Like you don't. I mean, there are some people who play Warhammer alone, but for the most part, you don't play Warhammer alone. It is by its very nature social. Like many people enjoy hobbying together. It's hard to talk about lore with yourself. You know, there's a connectedness to this, and I think that's something we don't necessarily, as a community, talk enough about, is like what that actually looks like and what that actually feels like. Because it's really like getting into Warhammer feels daunting. I've seen it described as the final boss of being a nerd. Like it's this like big challenge to overcome, and like in a lot of ways it is challenging, but in a lot of other ways it's also very rewarding.
So And I've mentioned it before. I wasn't really much in like the nerd community before Warhammer, so I just dived right into, I guess, the
Just
boss.
skipped, just like
So is that how most people see like Warhammer when it comes to other nerd communities?
well, if you think about like the barrier to entry to like Dungeons and Dragons
Mm-hmm.
is usually finding a group. So like if you have some friends that are into it or like you have some interest in it, you can like go online and find things. There's even like online ways to play Dungeons and Dragons. Like Baldur's Gate 3 is one of the like biggest games
Mm-hmm.
out there right now, and that's just Dungeons and Dragons.
Mm-hmm.
Something like Catan, which is kind of like, I feel like Catan is kind of your gateway to like serious board games.
Yeah.
Is super popular. Like it's not hard to find people who will play Catan, and it's like fairly easy to pick up. So it's like, you know, you're over at a friend's house and like, hey, you want to try this board game? It's called Catan, and you're like, okay, you really like it, and then you kind of start going into that like serious board game niche. Whereas like, it's like, hey, do you want to get into Warhammer? It's like $1,000. You have to paint everything and put it together, and also like,
you need
I don't
2
have
months.
two
Yeah, you need 2 months to learn the rules
like
fully. Like, I'm sorry, understand the rules.
yeah, like it's a much bigger commitment versus like, hey, do you want to join my D&D group? I'll make you a character. You just have to like show up and we'll show you how to play.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whereas it's like, you know, even if you were to say like, hey, I have a second army you can use, we can play the game, and it's like, all right, so there's 6 phases the game takes place across. Like it's intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
And then like the lore is huge, and like, you know, whereas like D&D is like, hey, have you read Lord of the Rings? It's similar to that. Or seen the Lord of the Rings movies.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like, it's a bigger hurdle. It's a little more niche. You don't just like walk casually into Warhammer and just be like, oh, that seems like an interesting thing. Let me just like devote a bunch of money and effort into it. I feel like you kind of like arrive at Warhammer through other nerdy things.
And it's just so big. Like the community is huge.
Yeah. Like I feel like it's like a, you know, if you have a friend who plays Warhammer and they're like, hey, do you want to try this? And like you kind of like edge your way into it.
Mm-hmm.
Like that happens. Like, you know, you started playing Warhammer through Jarrett.
Yeah.
So like you kind of had that connection of like, oh, what's this about? And like kind of like eased in through someone. Whereas like, I don't know, even Dungeons and Dragons at this point, you can like find outside of people who play Dungeons and Dragons. You can like seek that out because there's other things about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think Critical Role definitely shifted what D&D is today.
Maybe
and I
that,
guess like we're in that age right now where play on tabletop is changing that for people, and mini wargaming and their new style of videos is what's gonna change this community.
But even if you compare like Dimension 20, which is like Dropout's D&D channel, like that's bigger than Mini Wargaming. And Mini Wargaming, I think, is the biggest Warhammer channel out there.
It is, yeah.
And Critical Role is bigger than Dimension 20. So like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the biggest Warhammer like content creators are still not at the level of like, they're not competing with like the same scale as like the largest D&D creators.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just, you know, the Warhammer community I think is growing and it's getting bigger, but it's still like, it's much smaller than other like big.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, have you ever seen a picture from like a Magic the Gathering tournament? There's just like 3,000 people crammed into a convention center. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Even I think locally, like I saw a picture from like the deck boxes recent, like
Mm-hmm.
Magic the Gathering Day, which is in the same room we have the GT. They host the GTs in,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like 4 times the people in the same amount of space. And I was like, wow. It's like you know, that's a GT that attracts like 30 to 40 people, and it was like 150 Magic the Gathering players. Like,
I can't imagine the sound acoustics in that room.
oh, I know. It gets rough with 30 people. Just yelling at each other, yelling at the person directly in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I still think it's like Warhammer is kind of that like I agree with the final boss scenario. It's like, you know, you don't just like find it.
It finds you.
A little bit, yeah. Even like, I don't know. I don't think like you casually go from playing like video games one day to just like deep into Warhammer. I don't think that happens in the same way that like video gaming leads to D&D much faster.
I don't know. Ask Jared, because that's what happened to him.
Was it video game? Was it Dawn of War?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because he, I think he talked about it when he was first on, but that he played Dawn of War, and then a coworker at work was like, well, have you played the tabletop game? And he was like, there's a tabletop game? And then it's just, yeah.
But was he already into tabletop games at that point?
No, he didn't know there was a tabletop.
No, but like, had he ever played like D&D or like?
Nope.
Oh. So you have a household, you just skipped right to Warhammer. You're just like, no.
Yeah. We've somehow found the cheat codes.
I mean, if you want to go the next step, there's Warhammer tabletop RPGs, which I feel like is jumping even further into like Warhammer land. But
we've actually tried doing that too, like creating our own RPG Warhammer games.
There's one out there.
Yeah, Path of Exile or something. Path to Glory.
I can't remember what it's called, but yeah, it's like there is a Warhammer RPG out there.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, what are we? We're almost half an hour into the.
Okay, let's get to this guide.
Let's get to the topic at hand. We've
the first lesson of this guide is with Warhammer. There's tons of tangents.
Especially Chaos Divided, where if you want a coherent, logically structured podcast episode, we are not the right call for you.
Finish listening to this episode and then you can go to the next one, to the next podcast. But let me start off with the question. Laura?
Sure. Yes, I'm still here.
What do you wish you knew when you started Warhammer?
I wish I knew to focus more on the fun rather than the winning.
Mm-hmm.
I also wish I knew how to enjoy painting better when I started.
Mm-hmm. Because lately we've talked about that you're discovering your artistic skills and getting complimented for it.
I know, it's scary. It's terrifying.
Now can you say that? Okay, you don't have to say you're the best painter.
Oh, I'm a terrible painter.
But you're still a painter. You still have.
I'm a creative painter, we'll say.
There you go.
But no, it's something I never expected someone would ever say that they were, complimenting me on how I've painted anything, because I'm technically very bad at painting. But I seem to have found a small niche of what I do is interesting and unique, in how ridiculously chaotic it is. So some might say I ruin miniatures. I like to say I creatively inspire them.
Who are these some? And I'll beat up these some.
Some is also me. I am the some.
Well, I can't beat you up. That doesn't seem right.
But yeah, I think that would be, I can't paint for very long. I still struggle to paint for more than half an hour at a time, but I definitely enjoy it more than I used to. I just my eyes feel like they want to fall out of my head pretty fast. But I definitely I've been actually this week there's a GT coming up, so I feel more inspired to get battle ready, that's for sure. And I said in a previous episode I would never paint cultists. I not only painted 10 cultists this week, I painted them and I enjoyed painting them. Yes, I know.
Oh, what was the part that you enjoyed the most?
I'm discovering washes, or what are they called now? Shades. Back in my day, they were called washes.
And they weren't so glossy.
They were not as glossy. The gloss throws me off sometimes. And I'm finding that there's like certain ways that I can like very quickly paint a model that doesn't look like complete trash. I was, dry brushing is something I understood how to do. the washing and dry brushing together very quickly get you to a point that like a model doesn't look terrible. Like it looks what it's supposed to look like. So I was able to kind of like put some ridiculous colors. My cultists have bright pink capes with like neon blue pants, and they look ridiculous, and I got their skin to look kind of terrible but in like a decent way. My whole theme for my Emperor's Children is they're like snow based, so they're cold. That's my whole thing.
Okay.
So I was trying to get the skin to look like hypothermic.
Ooh.
Like they're like frostbitten. So I wanted
still going.
Well, they're like infused with chaos. They're like cultists. They don't care if they die. So I wanted their skin to kind of have that like blue, white, flaking, like their body literally like turning to like frozen dust around them look.
Wow.
And it doesn't look great, but at least kind of looks like that. So I was impressed with what I did. And I wish I could have said that earlier.
Oh, but you came to that point, and that's a wonderful moment to come to.
Like we don't talk about what my towel looks like. My towel looks awful. So you've seen my towel. You can't sit there and say it looks pretty.
I'm just gonna sit here and shake my head. Why does it have to look pretty?
No, but it doesn't. It's like gloopy and like too much paint. It's bad. It's like
I could probably tell you that if I showed someone who wasn't really well versed in the art world a Jackson Pollock painting, they'll probably be like, "Oh, that's stupid." But then they'll look at the price tag on that canvas and they'll probably be shocked. So it doesn't. The whole quote, or art or beauty is in the eye of the beholder, reigns true.
Fair. I'll you know what? I feel like I should own that, because it is true, and it is. You know what? I am learning, and learning to find my best, not necessarily the best. I think is what I think. That's kind of where I've been going. But now I want to ask you, what do you wish you knew? Node? Gnome?
Node.
New Edge?
Obviously, and I've said it before, how seriously long it would take to learn this game. For sure.
Do you truly understand Warhammer yet? Because I feel like
I think I'm much better where I feel more confident that I could probably read roughly my rules the night before AGT and I'll be ready for the weekend. In the beginning, I thought I was coming in with the idea that, I know how to play board games and I'm really good at board games and I've read a couple instructions in my life before. I can get this. No. It's probably taken me years to get. It's definitely taken me years to get to this point. So, knowing that it's gonna take time, it's learning a new language. It'd be like if I was dropped into France or Italy and I was expected to know how to communicate with the people. I wouldn't. So just.
Are you telling me your core French from going to a Canadian school did not prepare you to just be dropped into France and speak French?
I can tell you that I learned French on the West Coast and they don't really care. And my mouth cannot do the oohs and my tongue cannot do the ooh. I just outed myself. I'm a bad Canadian, French Canadian.
All of our Quebec listeners have
dropped.
Which we surprisingly had some, so they're all gone now.
Yeah, those some are gone.
You know what? I think that's fair, and I think that's honestly then. You see it sometimes when, like, I've noticed it playing somebody who's newer, that they apologize if they get the rules wrong, or they feel really like stressed about it, and they're like, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that was that. And like, I think giving yourself a little compassion is fair.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a great thing that I wish I would have new as well is and explaining to my opponents more that, hey, I'm really trying at this, and it may look like I'm not having fun, but I am. I'm just trying to calculate and understand this multi combo thing that's going on, and I, I I'm not quite understanding, and ask for more help.
Mm.
And just letting them know.
You know what? I had a moment. I played a game last weekend, and it was kind of one of those first moments where like I actually felt like I did have somewhat of a handle on the rules. It was a very weird interaction. My opponent used a stratagem to destroy a transport in my shooting phase, and then the units inside came out. And I was like, do they get to shoot? Because like that transport the reason that interaction had happened is because that transport had shot that unit, and I was like, and used firing deck, but then got blown up, and then the units were there and they technically haven't shot, and I was like, this is a weird interaction. And I had to kind of like think it through and look through the rules, and it was one of those first moments where I was like, actually felt confident that like I could figure that out, because it was odd, and it was one of those like, the rules are not going to specifically specify this because it's such a like rare interaction. I mean, you know what, our listeners can ream me out, but we did talk it through, and I did fire with them again. So if I got that wrong, let me know. I will eat that, but I couldn't find anything else that said that you wouldn't be able to do that. So, and that's one of those like, you know, those weird interactions like even 6 months ago would have like stressed me out. And like it takes a while to feel comfortable with some of like the weirdness that you're talking about a board game. Board games have pretty like confined spaces.
Yep.
So don't beat yourself up if you don't understand the like intricacies of this like ridiculously convoluted game, because it's not even just complicated, it is also convoluted.
And like each person will have its own interpretation.
Yes.
And that kind of goes into like the next question of like, what are some of your growing pains you've had?
See, I feel like, yeah, I've always like taken the challenge of playing as like the part of this game I enjoy. So my growing pains have more been on like the hobby side. Like not feeling confident. Like I definitely, like when I first came back, I almost felt like I had to like apologize for what my miniatures looked like. And like,
but you're actually just apologizing to yourself,
right? Like it was
like,
about me.
Who really cares? What? Obviously, like we don't want to see gray plastic on the table, but in hindsight, does it really matter what a battle-ready army looks like?
I don't think so. I mean, I definitely appreciate playing an opponent that has a beautifully painted army. Like I take the time to appreciate that. But it's more so appreciating the time and effort they've put in. I've definitely never played somebody and been like, oh, this army disgusts me. I shall not play this game.
They're so much better painted than me. I cannot stand the...
Or like, you dare to proxy when playing me?
Yeah.
How dare you?
And like
the gall.
Well, that spins well with our last podcast talking to Lawrence. Oh, sorry about the beeps. But how he said that if someone had a problem with his proxies, then he's just going to pack up and leave, because it's not worth the next 3 hours being with an opponent like that. If someone is behaving like that, they just showed you what the next 3 hours is going to be like, and you can just save your time and pack up and go have a chat with someone who's finished their game.
Actually, you know what? Talking about growing pains, learning how to deal with people who aren't great opponents is probably also like, I can think of like my first game with someone who was like pretty overtly cheating and like just like not being a good sport, and like that that racked me for a while. Like that took me a while to like wrap my head around and like get okay with. And actually, you know what, kudos to Jarrett, our our resident blood god. He actually helped me a lot through those things. Same with Tyler from Basement Wargaming, who we've had on the show. So, and of course Kaylee. I didn't want to leave you out there. But yeah, that one really took, because it was like something I didn't understand. I was like, why would you care so much about winning? Like, it was like it like didn't fit in my head, and I struggled with it. I still struggle with it, but I feel like I've like, it doesn't bother me as much anymore. I've just like learned to accept it.
Yeah. Well, now it's like getting to the point where you give yourself self-respect to stick up for yourself and understand who you're spending your time with. Like, time is so precious that you don't need to give it 3 hours to someone that's going to just either give you hell or it's going to make you think about for the next week, 2 weeks, months, years of like this experience, this awful experience with this one person. Like, you can't let that get to you.
Yeah.
And that's definitely like one of my growing pains. Yeah, I would definitely say like having my experience with not so nice. It's not like, not saying that they're not nice, but like how I said in the first question of maybe communicating to my opponent that I'm not comfortable with the rules, therefore I look like I'm slightly panicked, or I'm not, for example, like I get so deep in thought of like what my next step is going on. Sometimes I don't pick up on, or I didn't pick up on what my opponent was asking, and they're very well versed in it. They know how to calculate really quickly, but I'm still like, they're on a calculator. I'm writing it out, kind of calculating kind of speed, and so if I'm not giving them the answer right away, I think they took it as like I'm either ignoring them or I'm this I'm how do I want to say it? I've seen it before, and with having battle reports recorded, kind of watching it back kind of thing, and it's just like, perhaps if I had let them know that I'm struggling, maybe they wouldn't take it so personally that I'm perhaps, or that they're interpreting that I'm ignoring them. Trying to dance around this a little bit, but
no, yeah, but it's like there's a difference between like you're lost in thought, versus you're like you've clammed up and you're just like not interactive,
right? And I've seen that where they think I'm clamming up, or I don't want to be there, but that's not it. Like, my brain is a maze, and I'm trying to get to the conclusion, and perhaps if I had more confidence to let them know, like, hey, I just need a little more time to be able to answer what you think is a simple question. So I found that was a hard growing pain for me, and like not being so hard on myself when it comes to like a GT. Like, I would put so much pressure on myself to know everything about my army, like to have the answer. And I would go to GTs or RTTs not wanting to look like a fool, and to me, not looking like a fool was I had to know everything about my army, and if I stumbled on my rules, I made myself feel like a fool. It's not like the other person, and so just being more kinder to myself, to be like, it's okay, like you have your cheat sheets, it takes time to try to remember 50 different things when it comes to one single model.
That is something I think 10th improved, is that there is more similarities. So like if you play multiple armies, or even if you just play one army, but there's like things rhyme more than they used to. Like, you know, a flamer resembles other flamers, a power fist resembles other power fists. Like there's like things are similar in that respect, that I think that's like it's cut down things from like the 50 things to maybe the 30 things, but yeah, it's still a lot to keep in your head. And like yeah, I definitely felt that my first few games, it was like, what is that? And then you feel like embarrassed because the person standing across from you is just like, I know all of these things because I've played 75 games this edition with this army.
And I've been playing since 2nd edition.
I can tell you the stats of this unit in Rogue Trader. You're like, why?
How do you even remember? Like, I'm not someone that can remember, say, movie quotes. Like, I could probably watch a TV show over and over, and like it feels like I'm watching it it's like it's a new show to me. But how people can just
I can't reread books because I remember too much.
That is a talent.
It'll be like I've read The Lord of the Rings when I was like 13. And I've always wanted to like go back, and every time I'm just like, oh, this is what happens next, and this is what happens next, and it's just like reading reminds me of the next things, and I can't do it. So
do you think could you pull a rule out of an edition because you remember it?
I might not do it immediately, but yeah,
I'm impressed.
I might not get it perfect, but yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Like, yeah. Like, I was one of the weirdos that when they, like, announced Twin Linked was coming back, and they're like, you get to reroll the wound. I was like, that's not how Twin Linked works.
Oh.
Twin Linked just reroll the hit. Ah!
Get out of here.
But yeah. So, no, I don't know. Things just kind of, like, ping around in my head weird, and they, like, I have a fairly good memory. So it's not, like... But I do actually, you know what? The challenge with it, though, is sometimes it does happen. It'll be like, somebody will be like, oh, what's the strength of that weapon? And all, like, the 5th edition, like, strength comes out, which is usually worse. So it's, like, to my opponent's benefit when I get it wrong. But it's, like, yeah. I have a tendency to, like, when I make mistakes, it's, like, it's not necessarily wrong. It's just, like, the wrong edition.
Yeah. Somewhere there, it's right.
Yeah, it was right at some point. It's not right currently. Now, what excited you when you were beginning? You know, this is a little bit cheating because I feel like you've answered some of these in that video that we were talking about earlier. But you know what? I'm going to make you elaborate more. What was some of that initial excitement when you first got into Warhammer?
Oh, when I saw that Nurgling. I still remember. Okay, so I'm someone that likes to rearrange my house a lot, like every couple of months. But I remember how the hobby room looked. I remember where Jarrett was. I remember picking it up and looking at it clear as day. And the emotion I felt, like it felt like a love story where it was just like slow motion, where I'm holding this cute little model and hearing Blood God say, oh, that's Warhammer, and just my shock in it all. And I just felt this immense connection, and I knew that I was destined to go forward with this. So
would you say that you were holding a Nurgling, but the Nurgling was holding a Snurgling?
I'm gonna say that now. It's like the part. Okay, if you watch the mini wargaming video, there is a part where Dave is asking me, and he goes like, "It's a little bit corny to say, but he goes, Nurgle is love," and I was like, "Yes." You can't.
Okay, but did you like that he used the term corny too? Because as soon as I heard that, I was like, of course, he's gotta like slip it in. It's like, whoosh, little corn.
Yeah, little corn. And and I said to him, because we went to the Butterfly Conservatory, and I asked him, I said, it's like when the butterfly landed on him, didn't it feel like you were chosen? And I was like, did you feel his energy? And he goes, yes. And I said, and he probably felt yours just as much. And it was just like, maybe that's what happened with the Nurgling. And
you just like locked eyes and just like exchanged essence.
He smiled, I smiled. Love story.
Was Jared smiling? Was he like, yes, I've succeeded. I've brought her in.
I don't know. Everything was a blur around me, but probably.
It was just you and the Nurgling. That was it was like a teenage prom situation, but you're just like
100%, 100%. And I'm pretty sure he had the biggest smile on his face because he's probably that like that meme where it's just like that slow nod by Jack Nicholson, and then his smile gets bigger and bigger. And he's like, yes, she's in.
I mean, a Warhammer household's kind of like the dream, right?
That's what we got.
Right? No, that's really cute, and I like the you know what, we'll have to get a Snurgling at some point. Maybe that'll be our first piece of merch. Will be like a Snurgling. Ooh. What does a Snurgling look like?
Pretty much like a Nurgling,
but legally distinct.
I was gonna say happier, but could you be happier than a Nurgling?
I feel like you could. I feel like you could.
Maybe more variety. Maybe more modern. Let's say that. There we go. A Nurgling in the 21st century.
No, we might have had the Year of Chaos, but a lot of the Chaos line is still from the 90s.
Yeah. Can we just have like a Chaos decade? That'd be great.
You know what I love? Actually, I recently bought Chaos Sorcerer in Terminator armor, which is the same as the Chaos Lord in Terminator armor. And I opened it up and I was like, wow, this is kind of a more modern looking like Chaos sprue. Like, I was like pleasantly surprised. And then it was from 2006, and I was like, oof, this is this is where my standards are.
Almost 2 decades old.
Right? I'm like, this feels new. This feels like more modern, because like, I don't know, you've put it together like Chaos Bikers, for example. They're very 90s. They're Fisher Price bikes.
They're just rectangles.
The tires on them are literally Fisher Price looking tires. It's they're rough. But you get like desensitized to it, and you're like, you know, you're like, oh, there's like definition on some of these things. Like, look, the shoulder has details on it. What majesty.
And then you look at like the 8-bound with World Eaters and just like,
right?
Wow.
Or Death Guard. Even the Scarab Elite Terminators for Thousand Suns. You're like, oh damn, and then you're like look at Possessed, and they just literally have a lobster claw.
Yeah. There's just, I feel like somebody in Warhammer really likes their crustaceans.
I know. I feel like Slaanesh is weirdly crustaceous for some reason.
Yes. Yeah.
There's a lot of lobster claws, and I've never quite like figured that out.
Yeah, the Possessed is lobster claws, and then there's even an actual crab model in AOS. So someone in there loves their crabs.
Is it Demonettes that there's some of them? There's one of them that has a lobster claw.
Yep.
Yeah, I think there's a Keeper of Secrets that also has a lobster claw. Was it the Forge World one that did?
Yeah. Whatever her name was.
Yeah. So no, there definitely is. There's someone that's just like, I want sexy lobsters in my in my miniature game.
Yeah. What has excited you in the beginning?
See, I feel like I had 2 beginnings, so I don't super remember.
You have the Genesis, and then you have like the New Testament.
The Rebirth.
Yeah, the Rebirth. Yeah.
No, let's not get biblical here. Might set a book on fire. Yeah. But yeah, the first time was definitely like playing. I was just excited to play. I was just like, I don't like building a list was exciting. I mean, I still enjoy list building. You know what? I kind of enjoy like the puzzle of it. I think once I like got a few games in and started to figure it out a little bit, I was excited to like figure out Warhammer, because like 9th was complicated and like it felt like a jigsaw puzzle. It felt like a rubric that had to be like unwound. That was definitely like the first, like that was the exciting thing of like, how can I build a list that works? Like, I don't know. I was like, because I was, you know, I built my first list at ninth on like an Excel spreadsheet because I was like, I don't want to write it out by hand. And then I went to a tournament and somebody was like, what do you have, a battle scribe? And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I was like fresh meat in a lot of ways. So, yeah, digging into things, and also just like how evolved the game had gotten, like how competitive people had gotten, and like the quality of competition. Because I mean, when I played the first time, like, yeah, the internet existed, and like there were like web pages that you could go look things up on, but there wasn't like it wasn't honed to the like precision that it is currently. Like, you know, you'd see like somebody be like, hey, this is a thing I tried and it worked really well, and it was like people be like, oh, that's interesting, I'll try that. Or like this is this like one tactic. Like I remember like reading something about like Fish of Fury in 4th edition, which was actually, it was a cool thing. It was a cool way that it interacted. But it definitely wasn't like, I don't know. Now I feel like you can like go on a Discord and be like, hey, how should I play this army, and get like a list and like instructions and like a whole breakdown from like someone that'll be like very effective.
And then they have weekly stats of what's going on around the world, of what's winning, what's working, what's
right,
like to the number. Like, it's insane.
Like the, you know, like what was it, Chaos Space Marines won the London Grand tournament.
Did they?
They did.
Ooh, what kind of list did they bring?
I feel like it's very much the like the current meta list. It was Forge Fiends, Obliterators. It had Celeste in it, which was interesting.
Oh.
Which Celeste is kind of an interesting model. What else is in there? Some Warp Talons, which Warp Talons are super fun. And then a bunch of Chosen with Chaos Lords. So,
well, congratulations to that Chaos player.
Absolutely. London Grand, I think that's one of the biggest tournaments. I think it was like 700 people or something.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, and I think that's the first major tournament win for Chaos Space Marines this edition. So,
wow, that's a lot of tables, and that's a lot. That's a big space.
Yeah, I would assume it takes more than one room at that point. You're like,
you'd hope so.
It's probably an entire convention center. But yeah, so I don't know. I found like cracking the, and I still feel that like 10th I feel like I haven't quite cracked that nut yet. So that's still keeping me excited in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I feel like 10th is more chill than 9th. I feel like that's probably due to a lot of burnout, whereas people can just pick up 10th and just have like a casual game, where I felt this is just anecdotal for me, but like I felt like 9th people were grinding to play, whereas 10th is like, I can easily just pick up an army and read the rules within a couple days, maybe the night before, and I'll get it for the GT kind of thing. Or this seems like a fun list, let's put it together. Whereas like 9th was like, I need to know what secondaries I'm taking for what missions against what type of factions, and just I need to go for that 100. Whereas
I think 10th there's a lot more nuance of how you actually play the army, which I think is healthier, because it means like there's more room for like not the list. Because like I think 9th it got to the point it's like you pick these secondaries, you pick this list will like execute these secondaries in this order, and like it had kind of gotten like solitary, where you were just kind of like playing your own game and ignoring your, like, not that you weren't interacting, but it didn't really matter.
Yeah,
like the armies that were doing well were the ones that cared the least about their opponent.
Where now it's like with the list building, it's a lot less restrictive. Like Lauren's last episode, he talked about 11 grav tanks, and I know someone that is going to the upcoming GT with 100 jackals. Like, it's just like, let's just try it. Or like the Celeste in the Chaos Space Marines. Like, let's try to find these little fun nuances and just have fun. Let's see how it goes.
100 jack. Okay, we got to stop for a second. 100 jackals.
Maybe.
That is so many models of just. It's ridiculously amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. Sorry, I got stuck on that. That is like 700 points of jackals.
They're really good.
They're quite good, but they're also, yeah, that's an interesting choice. I love it.
I know it because I'm commissioning it.
You're painting 100 jackals?
I am.
Damn. In what? That's in a week and a half, so that's a bold choice.
Got 30 done.
It's only 30%.
Yeah. Talk to me the Friday night before the GTN.
What, at 4 a.m. when you're still painting?
Yeah.
No. What felt what felt scary about getting into Warhammer for you?
Being a woman. The scariest I've ever felt was right before the GT, and my first GT, and just sitting in that parking lot, and I just see guy versus guy, or guy after guy after guy coming out of the car loads, and I'm the only woman, and it's not necessarily scary, but it was just like it had a sense of like, oh, I'm in a sphere that I know nothing about. And I just kind of jumped into it, and honestly, I was kind of scared of like how I was gonna be kind of seen. I like taking pictures, so I was very like shy to take pictures, but people were very kind about it. And I didn't want to be looked at as like, oh, I'm only into Warhammer because of ... I'm only there to hook up, or I'm only there to seduce.
Okay.
Or
Can you imagine that is actually your plan though? Like what? Like how does that make any sense that you're looking to hook up at a Warhammer tournament?
Well, this is also, I had no idea what Warhammer is all about, but
no, I know, but I've heard men also say that
like, they're scared.
That there are women who just like want to,
well, that's
like not serious. Like I've heard men say that.
Yeah. That they're only there to get a boyfriend or to be around their boyfriend.
And I was just like, what a terrible venue for that particular activity. Like, hey, let's, like, I don't know. It's such a weird thought. Like, not that it was a worry you had, but it's a weird thought that I have heard men say it.
And I think that's what guided me into feeling that way prior to the GT. Obviously, being there, I didn't get that sense at all. But I think other people saying it online just kind of pinged in my head, and it kind of stuck in there.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know. It's that type of like casual misogyny I have absolutely no patience for, but it is like prevalent. And I think you do see like a lot of like online, a lot of like women who are creators in Warhammer, like playing isn't necessarily what they focus on. It's like you tend to see more like hobbyists. And I wonder if part of that is that they do feel that like pressure and that like, I don't know, gatekeeping.
Yeah. Honestly, I think you are 100% correct. If I'm thinking that, I can only imagine other people thinking that. Because, like I said, I was scared that I would take pictures, and I never wanted to give someone the sense that I was exploiting this opportunity to take pictures of their amazing models and then post it and then take credit for it. I never wanted that. I didn't want them to look at me like as I'm like an influencer being in their sphere.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because I feel like it's that thought or that like even like I don't even know what to call it, like that vibe almost, like that radiates out around kind of the Warhammer community. I feel like keeps a lot of women from competitive play or from even just like casual game nights. And like you know, I said this before, but like when we talked to Tanya and she in that episode, and she talked about there's no women in her like local area who play Warhammer, and I've like that kind of like broke my heart a little bit in that, like, you know, because I very highly doubt there hasn't ever been another woman who's been interested in Warhammer. They just, I feel like it's like they're not necessarily comfortable coming out and playing. And I feel like that's more what keeps women from Warhammer. It's not necessarily like a lack of interest, it's a lack of like welcomeness.
Or the fear of what could happen because they've heard of like a story or what has happened to other people, or
yeah. So it's definitely it's a barrier, I think, that I wish wasn't there.
But at the same time, I do put that barrier on myself because no one has ever said to me, "Don't take pictures of my stuff," or I'm doing that to myself. And I think even talking about it right now, I'm thinking to myself, like, it's pretty ridiculous that I am putting that on myself. Like, I wish I hadn't, because then I'm taking away my potential of creating some wonderful pictures and continuously going and growing and creating. But I just, wanted to prevent a hypothetical situation.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, my scary is very similar. My trans ass coming into a GT was a little scared. Because again, it's like, it's almost like the double whammy. It's like, hey, if I get perceived as a woman, there's like the baggage of being like a woman in a very like masculine space. And then it's just like, or also being perceived as like trans and just having to deal with like the baggage that comes along with that. So it's not always easy if you don't fit kind of the stereotypical mold, we'll say.
And you find it's less scary now.
I think I've just learned to care less. There's definitely like friction. You know, not everyone's always great. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, it's also part of it is like a lack of exposure in some ways, and people just like aren't used to like, you know, they're either not used to it or they don't like encounter it in their day-to-day life to the same extent. So it's like they're more so having to learn. And when you're playing a game like Warhammer that takes up a lot of like mental capacity, you know, it is what it is kind of like what I've come to accept. But it does make it like, it's like a little bit of a like, I have to carry a little bit of extra load of like dealing like with being like misgendered and like being like, you know, treated differently or whatever. So it like, yeah, it's not scary anymore. It doesn't like, it's more just like I've accepted it.
But now you can spearhead for other people that may feel the same fear, and you can bestow your knowledge onto them.
You know, and part of it's also, I've been actually quite shocked how many like trans women do play Warhammer.
Especially out here too, yeah.
Yeah, there's like, it's like I went to a GT at one point that there was like 3 of us, and I was like, this is a shockingly high proportion of trans women in any room of this size, let alone Warhammer. Like, I was not expecting it at all. So like,
this was at Moy?
Sometimes you have like weird, you have like weird situations where you're like, I think there's actually more trans women than cis women in this room. That feels weird. That's never happened in my life.
But you know what? It's awesome.
It is. No, it was a cool experience. But yeah, it's still like, there was 3 of us in a room of like 45 people. So you're still not exactly the majority, we'll say. So yeah, but I definitely think that like, and even just dealing with my own head, I think was a bit of a like, because I do associate Warhammer as being very masculine. And like being like a very like thing that men do, and being comfortable coming back to it was like something I had to deal with in my own head of like, you know, how do I like, because I kind of walked away from Warhammer for like 10 years. And coming back was like, the first hurdle was my own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I got pretty lucky because I worked in kitchens. And I remember that thought, like, oh man, I'm going to go into a male-dominated area and how am I going to deal? But then you figure out that actually kitchens are quite equal with females. there's a lot of female chefs out there.
I was about to say, I work in finance. The part of the other struggle was like, I live in male-dominated land. Do I want to spend my free time in it?
Yeah. I guess that's a yes.
Well, and part of it is discovering that it isn't as like, it's maybe male-dominated, but not like overwhelmingly so.
It is male-dominated, but I wouldn't say it's not. It's not like heavily masculine-dominated because there's still like there's just people of all walks of life in it. It's not just your gym bros kind of thing, or
you know what though? I was surprised by how many gym bros do play Warhammer.
And yes, of course, but it's not just that. Like,
no, I know. I just was like when you again when I was younger, like when you would go into like Games Workshop, it was very much that like neck beard greasy nerd vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely think like the diversity of people who play Warhammer has like increased a lot. Like I don't say the like, you know, the gym bro vibe is like, I don't mean that negatively.
No.
Like it's a pleasant surprise that there's like people of like very different interests coming together for something like Warhammer.
100%. Yeah. Of any career, of any thoughts, of any like political sides or anything. Like, it's just or any religion, like it, that's pretty much like left at the door, which is fantastic. And it's just all about Warhammer and connecting as just people, as individuals.
Because what is Warhammer, Kaylee?
It's the glue.
I love that. I did not write that many questions, and we are it's just taking a while.
Is time just slowing down? Like,
we spent like half an hour talking about butterflies. So, I do want to ask, what's your favorite moment from your early days?
Playing or painting.
We are a holistic Warhammer podcast. I don't differentiate. Like you've been kind of like talking about hobbying when I'm talking about playing. I've been talking about playing when you've been talking about hobbying. I feel like talk about Warhammer. You can have two moments if that's what you're asking.
Can it be like a broad moment?
This could be whatever you need or want it to be.
I have to give you the right answer.
Would you like to rephrase the question?
I think.
Do you need to call a friend?
Yeah, I think just like the best moments were creating with Jarrett. Him and I doing the like the real role playing Warhammer stuff and building these elaborate tables and spending time with him, and also recording it and posting it on Instagram, where it's now forever memories that now I can go back on and watch and feel again. I think myself doing that has been such a gift that I can always hold, and I get to keep those moments in time.
In the future, when you're Grandma Snurgle,
Grandma?
Or would you be Grammy Snurgle?
Grammy Snurgle for sure. Yeah, Gma Snurgle.
Grandmother Snurgle. That would be your, because you got grandfather Snurgle. You'd be grandmother Snurgle.
People are gonna be calling me that.
Good. I'm starting to trend. On the moment of your mini wargaming ascent, grandmother Snurgle is what kicks in.
There were parts or moments when I was there, and Dave would look at me and he's like, "You are Nurgle."
Oh.
Oh my god, you're Nurgle. You're such Nurgle.
What does that even mean?
I don't know.
Well, folks, Nurgle Snurgle just nurgled the internet into entropy.
I just showed you what being Nurgle's all about.
We went from that height of excitement to complete crash. So we're gonna have to restart. I don't think we could rematch the energy we had gotten to. So we're gonna admit to Snurgle's supernatural powers.
That's only a taste.
Only a rotting taste.
What do you think it would taste like?
Nurgle's rot?
Yeah.
Terrible?
But what's that? Durian fruits also smells terrible, but people love the delicacy of it.
Yeah. I'm sure Nurgle's rot to Nurgle demons tastes delicious. Yeah. It's like, you ever seen like SpongeBob when it's like the nasty patty? It's like got like warts on the side of it and like pus and like, you know, but it's like when they eat it, it tastes like the best hamburger they've ever had. That's
really?
No. That's what like a Nurgle demon. It's like it looks disgusting and they think it's great. And then it's like everyone else is looking on in horror as they're just eating like maggot-filled like rot.
Well, like I was saying, like the durian fruit, it's not even allowed in some hotels because it smells so bad.
Yeah,
and it's a real thing.
You know, I can see Nurgle's garden being a smelly place.
But at the same time, like, to them, probably doesn't smell because it's like they've been there for a while. They get used to it. It's almost like spicy peppers too. Like, if you're used to spicy peppers, you taste the flavor of the pepper. But if you're not used to it, it's burning hellfire in your mouth.
Yeah, if you're like used to the rot and contagion, it's delicious. And
yeah.
I think you have to go to Slaaneish's realm if you want like actually tasty food.
But they could also have the worst food, right? Because it's like to the extreme.
Yeah, it'd be like, it's like an episode of The Simpsons where Homer Simpson he eats the like Doom Claire or something. It's like a 1,000,000 calorie eclair.
Oh.
That would like instantly gives you a heart attack because it just like fills you like with so much cholesterol. I feel like that's more Slaanesh. It's like delicious, but just awful for you.
Yeah.
It's like decadent to the. It'd be like, you know, candy that's so sweet it like makes your like teeth hurt.
Or like instantly rot.
Yeah. And the teeth go to Nurgle's garden. They're just
like,
and turn into Nurglings. That's actually what Nurglings are. It's like the rotten teeth of Slaanesh's victims.
I was gonna say into like a nice necklace, but yeah, it can turn into Nurglings too.
I mean, a necklace. Would you not want a necklace of like teeth Nurglings?
Yeah.
Just like polish them up. And then they all have their big smiles on them, and those smiles are also Nurgling teeth.
Oh my god. Or
like
and add claws to them, and it's a teeth and claws necklace.
There you go.
Stay tuned for the Snurgle jewelry line.
Luxury Warhammer wear. But yeah, no, I you know what? After this moment, I'm believing you're also Nurgle.
Okay.
You've convinced me. You've convinced me.
Yeah. I don't know what my powers are quite yet. I'll probably find out when I'm dead, but yeah.
That would make sense.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm not arguing.
I mean, how early before COVID was Snurgle created? You just had to charge up a little bit, and then just global pestilence.
Yeah, like a year and a half.
Yeah, you know, you were just getting acquainted with your powers, and you were like, bam, pandemic.
Yeah. I'm just waiting until like the 7th year of Snurgle. That's probably when I'll ascend to at least
that makes sense.
Demonhood. Yeah.
Yeah, that would check out.
Yeah, I'm excited.
You'd be a demon prince of yourself, I guess.
Make sure you're around.
Stay subscribed to see Snurkle's demonic ascension.
I got at least 2 more years, so subscribe for 2 years. Maybe we'll make it a Patreon thing.
Subscribe to Patreon. There we go.
Okay, what was your favorite moment of your early days?
I am so distracted at this point. Let me favorite moment from your early days. I was just really excited to get started. I feel like my favorite moments have actually been like more recently. Which I mean, I've only been playing for a little over a year since I came back. So
yeah,
I mean,
this is still kind of
early days. You know what? Honestly, I feel like my favorite moments haven't happened yet. I feel like there's like more excitement over the horizon. I think
and that's kind of like what I was saying to you before when we're talking about the mini wargaming video. Some might look at it as like, oh, that's the height of it, like that's the end of it, and just kind of that's the peak. No, that's just like.
Well, let me ask you: when you went to mini wargaming the first time, did you think that was the most exciting thing you were ever gonna do with Warhammer?
No, I think every day is an exciting day. Like I don't go like, oh, if I do this, therefore I don't need to do any more. I think I'm.
No, that's what I mean. But did you think you would top that level of excitement? Like for yourself, like not like that it was like the top thing you were ever gonna do, but like did you think you were gonna have a thing that was more exciting? Because like I saw that video of Jared, and he looked like he was gonna vibrate out of his own skin. So.
Yeah.
He looked like he was about to transcend reality.
He was very excited. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I think I still want to say no because I guess I don't have these set goals of like, if I do this, then that's where, I don't know. I'm just treating this whole thing as just pure adventure. And one of the things I like to do when I would travel is sometimes, especially in the early days, not have a map and just kind of get lost, and I would just walk around and discover, and that's kind of the mindset I'm using with Warhammer. And each corner is a new adventure and a new discovery that I'm finding, and I embrace it all. So did I think I was going to top that? It's just never something I think about where I need to like top the next thing, or I've done it, now I need to top it. It's like everything's kind of like it's all equal. From going to the GTs and meeting people is just the same as like meeting Warhammer celebrities or chatting with them, or like it's not it's not like a graph where it goes up and down. It's just it's a sphere.
Every time I ask you a question that I think is a yes or no question, you have like waxed philosophically and like completely changed my perspective on like what I was even trying to ask you about, and I enjoy that. Thank you, because I never actually know what to expect when I ask you a question.
I will take that as the highest compliment.
Like I feel like when you ask me something, I just answer the question, and you're like, actually, I've thought deeply about this, and life is more of a sphere.
Maybe that's why all planets are round.
I mean, planet being round isn't actually like mandatory. You can have donut-shaped planets.
That's true. Or we're like a pear shape.
I think that'd be more difficult because gravity gets like wonky, but you actually can have a donut-shaped planet.
That's cool.
Requires like ridiculously specific circumstances, but yeah. So not all planets are round. I mean, technically glass giants aren't, there's not really like a thing in the center of them.
Mm-hmm. So. But there's no square.
Yeah, square would be rather difficult in open space.
Mm-hmm.
Like, watermelons don't grow square unless you put them in a square box.
That's true.
Mm.
That's very,
you can
very
have
true.
square watermelons, but you got to do something to have them happen.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, we're not. Yeah, this is.
That just went.
I'm.
This podcast, you'll listen to.
This is an unhinged episode.
The door's off.
This is. This started off with butterflies and is ending with madness. So this sounds like a good episode of Chaos Divided. Squared planets.
Well, people do like our food talks.
Actually, you know what? That reminds me, because we have had some listener comments, and I was going to bring them up because we had an interview last week, so we haven't brought them up yet. Mm-hmm. I think we covered that one, but I asked, what was your favorite kind of pizza recently? Mm-hmm. And we had one entry, and it was from Philly. Hard to argue with a classic Canadian pizza, pep, mushroom, bacon, and it has to have that sweet sauce with garlic brushed crust. Okay, garlic brushed crust, legit. Yeah, it's game changer.
What about stuffed crust?
You're on the stuffed crust. I'm not with you with the stuffed crust. And I also had a poll that was, do you know the difference between all of the Space Marine armors? And 75% of respondents said no, so I felt very vindicated. Yeah, that's a pretty large majority. So Games Workshop, stop making more types of games of Space Marine armor.
Yeah.
How many types of Chaos Space Marine armor there are?
Is there an actual number?
Well, there's a Terminator armor.
Yeah.
And then everyone else has the same armor in like some degree of, like that they just have like regular mark, whatever it is, plate 7 or I think. Mm-hmm. Like Legionaries have the same armor as Chosen, have the same armor as Possessed, have the same armor as Raptors, have the same armor as Warp Talons.
See, then I'm in the boat of like, then what is the difference of armor?
No, but there's like Centurion plate, and there's Terminator plate, and there's Power Armor, and there's what's the other? Phobos armor is another type of armor.
I don't know.
That's what I mean. Like if there was a Phobos equivalent, it would just be called like Sneakinator if it was like a friggin' Chaos Space Marine, and it'd be like they wouldn't have a special type of armor. They'd just be like, oh, those are the sneaky lads over there. Mm-hmm. So they know how to not be redonkulous. They just choose to be redonkulous for Space Marines to make them special.
If that's what they need to feel special, then
like there's Primaris armor that's different than the other armors. Like
yeah. And then they kind of say it to you like you should know the difference. It's like, buddy.
When somebody looks me in the eyes and is just like, these are my Eradicators, as if that means something, I'm like, do Eradicators only have one type of gun? Like, is that the situation? I don't know.
I know that they eradicate when they shoot, so they need to be shot off, but they need to be destroyed off the table first.
Yeah.
That's all I
got. I
But at the same time, but it's at the same time, like, I can't tell you how many times people have called my Plague Bears Poxwalkers and my Poxwalkers Plague Bears.
That's fair. But you know what? They are very similar. Mm-hmm. I don't know why they're different, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. That feels like something that doesn't need to be different. Like, I get that there's, like, no... But it's, like, it's more so that, like, Space Marine players will look you in the eyes and expect you to know what they're talking about. Like, when, like, a Harlequins player is like, oh, this troop is going to shoot at you, and you're like, I don't know what that means. And they'll be like, oh, it has this gun, and this gun, and this gun. You're like, oh, okay. Or, like, when you're like, hey, what's that? And they're like, oh, it's a this squad. This is what it has. Whereas if you, like, talk to a Space Marines player, they're like, oh, that's my, Redonkulox squad. It does Redonkulox things. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, this is my Hell Screamer squad. And you're like, that, what?
Yeah. So, what we're saying is if we went to Space Marine Trivia Night, we would be terrible on your team. I am very much still stuck in, like, previous edition, like, Firstborn Space Marine, like, mindset. Mm-hmm. So people will be like, hey, this is an intercessor. And I'll be like,
oh, an assault squad, and then they'll be like, no, it is an assault intercessor squad. And I'll be like, I don't, what? Okay. Or they'll be like, this is a squad, and I'll be like, oh, is that a tactical squad? And they'll be like, no, I don't even know what the equivalent is. But they'll just be like, it's a this squad. I'm like, but they look like they have bolters. I'm very confused.
Yeah.
And I liked when they were simpler. Devastator squads could have different types of heavy weapons similar to Havoc's. I don't know what the rest of it is.
See, even you're talking too much for me.
It's so complicated.
But we love it.
I don't know if I love Space Marines that much.
Nor does 75% of listeners.
I do. You know what though? I will say, like, I like playing into Space Marines. I think it's like an interesting like army to play into. I just like have no interest whatsoever in them.
That's why we're Chaos divided and not Imperial divided.
I feel like there's like a part of me that really likes the White Scars. And I just like don't want to figure out Space Marines to ever actually figure that army out.
I think you like them because secretly, if they want Chaos, they would definitely be Slaanesh with all the bikes.
They are 100% Slaanesh. They're the go fastest lads.
Yeah.
They have the fastest bikes. They do the fastest thing. That's honestly part of why I wish I could have more bikes. Like Space Marines have varieties of bikes. There is different types of bikes. They have like ATVs. They got like hover skimmer things.
Yeah, they got the Mario Kart looking vehicles.
Yeah. Like they have a lot of go fast stuff.
Yeah.
I don't have enough go fast stuff.
I kind of wish that we could see more White Scars on the table. Like I'd love to see a full White Scars army. You just don't see it. I've
never actually seen one. No. I have seen a Raven Guard army painted as Raven Guard. But I've never seen White Scars. And they're so, and even the lore, they're super cool. And they're just they're so different from all the other loyalists. They're they do their own thing. They're not as I don't know. They're not as just ultramarine, I am duty and honor and blah, blah, blah. Uphold the Codex Astartes. They just do their own thing and they're just off blasting around being as fast as they possibly can.
Yeah.
I don't respect that.
Yeah.
Anyways, any other
guides?
This got very
any more tangents?
Off the rails.
Yeah. I'm so sorry for people who wanted a linear podcast.
It was you know what? I figured this one was going to be an exciting one because it's been an exciting day for you. So yeah. I hope this has maybe helped you express some of that just pure joy you've been having today.
Yes, and I hope other people can feel that joy as well.
And in the meantime, I want to thank you all for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe to Chaos Divided, both here and on Instagram and YouTube at Chaos Divided 40K. And you can find us on social media at Nurgle_Snurgle and at Blushing Noise Marine. I haven't messed that up in a little while. And also, we launched a Patreon.
Yeah, so if we have a tier, the couple tiers there, you could join our Discord. You can listen to bonus episodes that will launch each month. Polls, live streams. There's a couple options there, and it's going to continue to grow as this community grows. So we're very excited. We are, and it's our lowest tier is $2 a month. So we wanted to make it accessible, and we already have a pretty, I'd like to think, vibrant Discord space going on, and a lot of people sharing some really cool stuff. So I hope you'll join us. Yep. Because all of that support goes towards the future of this podcast. And I know Laura and I would love to be at Adepticon. So that type of support will help us get there. I know, I didn't realize Adepticon was the goal, but I saw that recently and I was like, oh, that is the we're setting the bar high. And I think that's a good bar to set. And even we talked about this podcast, once we get to Adepticon, it doesn't end there. We'll go it's but a beginning. Yes.
Actually, but speaking of cons, do we want to talk about our upcoming appearances?
Yeah. Even though you did your outro, yeah.
We're mid outro. It's not over till you
we
say ciao for now.
Okay. Yeah, until I say it, not you.
Well, I don't say ciao for now. That's your thing.
But you just
I
say
bye-bye.
But yes, at the end of the month, Laura and I will be at HalCon in Halifax. There are still tickets for Friday and Saturday. Or sorry, Sunday, not Saturday.
Yeah, so I think Saturday is sold out.
And we'll be doing a panel together on Saturday. So if you are attending HalCon, come by, check out the schedule. On October 14th, we'll get the final time of when that is, and obviously we'll shout it out. So keep an earful for that. And then Laura's doing a solo panel on Sunday. So
and you're doing what, 9 panels, 15 panels?
Only 6, okay?
Only 6. Oh, I'm sorry.
But yes, I'm doing 6 panels. One with Laura. We're going to be talking about podcasting, and we'll talk about us podcasting and helping others getting into the podcasting world. So very excited. I've said it before. Doing this podcast has been amazing, and if we can help others to do that as well within their own hobbies, I would love to share that joy and knowledge.
Help others find their voices.
Exactly. And I'll be doing 3 other panels talking about painting from beginner, intermediate, and expert. I'll be doing a panel with Soul Ring MTG, and we'll be talking about hobbying in the social media sphere. And then I'll be doing a solo panel just talking about big world of miniatures.
That sounds very cute. The big world of miniatures.
Yeah.
And my solo panel, because I'm not cool enough to have 6, so I had to hold it all in for one. Is going to be on finding the narrative moments in tabletop games. Mm-hmm. So not just specifically like Warhammer. It's going to be finding them throughout all of the games that I think we all know and love, and finding those moments that you remember and kind of build memories and bonds with the people you play these games with.
Mm-hmm. And if you see us at the convention, come up to us, talk with us. Don't feel shy. Ask us any questions you have, and we'll be happy to chat.
I'm the big bright red ginger. I don't think you're gonna miss me. So, but I will warn you, I don't have great eyes, so I don't recognize.
You have to come
people.
Closer.
You have to get close before I'll actually can see you. But yeah, absolutely, come say hi. That's kind of what we're there for, is to like meet mm-hmm. people and yeah, definitely. If you're at HalCon, we'd love to see you.
Yes. Yeah. Super excited.
And at that very long outro.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Ciao for now.